Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time again. It is tier list discussion time. So, Jingliu has been in the game for a bit. I have been having an absolute blast with this character, both in testing her in MOC and also in a fresh account that I've done. I'm having a ton of fun. I haven't had this much fun in the game since probably the launch of the game, so that is definitely saying something for me. But when we look at this tier list, actually, before we even get into that, I had a comment on one of my previous videos saying, are you going to do another giveaway? Because I used to do tons of them, haven't done them in a while. So we are going to do a giveaway in this one. We'll kick it back off. We'll do a $100 giveaway. Basically, all you have to do to enter is be subscribed and leave a comment. And about a week away, I'll do the draw and announce the winner in a community post. You can say whatever you want in your comment. Doesn't matter. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I suck. I really don't care. And you'll go into the draw. And then, yeah, there's more details in the description if you want to know the fine stuff. But basically, that is it. So, before we get into the tier list, these things are always subjective. The game is a casual game. You can clear the game with just about anything you want. So yes, to those that say technically, you don't need tier lists, they don't matter. That is correct. But for those of us that want to have some fun, discuss our opinions around characters, and just add a little bit more depth to the game, that's what this shit is for. It's not to say your team is bad, your characters are bad, you're playing the game wrong. There is no wrong way to play a game. Just getting all that stuff out there early because I don't want people to complain. But you know, you can put that stuff as your comment if you want and you can enter the draw. That is fine. But let's jump into it and check out the tier list and give you guys my thoughts around it. Okay, so the one we're checking out is going to be the one over on Pridewin. I always find it works better when I talk about the Pridewin one and my thoughts around it than when I make my own, because then people flame me for my Yukong ratings. So let's get into this one. Now, this one is interesting because this has sort of evolved with the game, and I feel like this is now based on a position of players are through the game. People can clear MOC 10, and then they're looking at, you know, trying to maybe speed things up and stuff like that. Now, they have got different things. They've got this toggle here that you can show 4-star characters with E6 or E0, which, you know, a lot of it we're going to look at is E6 for most players. Now, if you are a new player, this stuff's still going to be relevant, and I'll talk about characters and their progression through the game. But I think Blast is kind of the most appropriate one to leave it on as default. When we look through it, we got single target, we got full AoE, 4 to 5 targets, but I feel like Blast is the main way. As we've seen through the game, it's sort of those destruction type characters where destructions normally have big damage to a main target, smaller damage to adjacent targets. It's just been working well because they can clear the adds in Memory of Chaos and then go and still deal good damage to the boss. Now, when we look at characters from other sort of other classes that are performing well, they fall into this destruction type of play without being destruction characters, i.e. if we look at Kafka here, she is a Nihility, but she has that destruction type feel where she more damage on the primary target, less damage on the adjacent targets, but she's got the AoE ult, so she can clear adds and she can deal damage. QQ, full AoE on the ult, and then on the basic attack, when you get it enhanced, it's strong damage on the main target, smaller damage on adjacent. Zilla, she's a bit different, but she can just kill adds and move on to the next one and keep dealing damage. So it's really interesting when we look at that. And then even when we look to the next tier, we have Jing, whose Lightning Lord can obviously deal more damage to the primary target and less to adjacent. And it's sort of the way I feel like the game is flowing. So I'm really curious to see the way they develop characters in the future. Considering like if we look to like more Hunt and Erudition characters, I feel like they're still going to build them more like Destruction themed characters, because otherwise they're just a pure single target Hunt character. Like if we look at Yang Qing, where even is he? Just feels like shit because you just cannot deal with adds. He was good at the start of the game when you didn't care about speed of clearing, you didn't care about 3-star, and you were just trying to clear, and his break was ice, he could freeze, it was handy for survival. But since then, it's just really quite trash. So curious to see where they go. But I just wanted to get that out. I feel like we're looking at more of that endgame type play, sort of min-maxing. We've got the E6 on the 4-stars, just so you guys know where everything is at. So I wanted to look at this and go through the different things. Now, Jingliu, I personally, once again, I made a video about it. I think she's the best DPS in the game currently. Personally, I think when we look to, and people had some good comments in my last video talking about, yeah, but once you get E2 Dan probably becomes better in general. And I'd say, yes, E2 Dan is probably got the wood over E2 Jingliu, but I also think that most players don't go for E2 on their characters. Some people do, I get that, but I feel like the majority of free-to-play, when they're looking at pulling what to pull for, I think they're not looking at that. But either way, I think these two are definitely the benchmark for damage dealers. I definitely do think that Kafka once we get a 5-star Nihility character that has really big dot damage, I definitely think Kafka could go up to the same tier as these guys, maybe in combo with a 5-star Nihility character that does dot damage. I definitely can see that matching up, like that combo, which would be a very specific combo, but just with the pieces, the puzzle pieces that Kafka has, I don't see her doing it. When we look to something like Topaz who's coming out, I have a feeling that Topaz is probably going to really shine with Clara, maybe with Himiko if the enemies are weak to fire as well. Are probably going to be here too, and then maybe Jing. The main ones that she's used in, but I don't think she has that just stellar follow-up attack 5-star damage dealer that's been power crept to the point of these two that she can really support. So I can definitely see this list changing as we get new characters, and those characters that are dependent on other teammates can definitely climb up. But as it stands, I definitely think these two are in a category of their own 100%. Then, if we look at single target, when we look at debuffer, we can see that Pella drops down because she's not as potent as Silverwolf. Now, Silverwolf, I still think, has the wood on Pella if you need to use that element change, because the element change is so huge. If you're bringing Pella and your DPS doesn't have the advantage, and you still need to do breaks depending on where your account's at. Some people can just brute force it. But if you need it, then yes, Silverwolf becomes better. But Pella is an absolutely huge unit. And things with Pella and Asta, I think these guys are starting to see more value, and they're starting to shine a bit brighter. Because people are starting to get that better gear on all of their characters, and you can start seeing the full value in these two characters, which is absolutely fantastic. Then we go here and we've got Bronya and Tingyun. Tingyun going up. I want to see what their actual changelog is for the definition for Tingyun. Another long overdue upgrade. Tingyun and Bronya both top tier. And who is better is decided on the DPS of your choice. They're both outstanding. Yeah, I definitely think this too. I do think some situations Tingyun is better. Some situations Bronya is better. It depends on skill points. Depends on a bunch of things. But I honestly think as a pivot support, I like Tingyun's ultimate more than Bronya's skill to play defensively. If you're in a defensive pickle and you need to give your healer an extra heal or something, I prefer using the Tingyun to get that extra heal from the ultimate of the healer, as opposed to using Bronya to give the healer another turn to then use a skill, because often you can be crunched with skill points and stuff like that. But in general, I think they're both fantastic, definitely. And I can still consider Tingyun to be above Asta. However, I think Asta matches Tingyun if you're running hyperspeed combos where Asta can make you push past breakpoints for speed. I definitely think that's a situation where Asta gets more valuable when you're really well tuned to Asta. And the other situation is obviously fire weak enemies. She does definitely shine a lot better in that. And also, we don't have a top tier fire DPS. If you look at this on the screen right now, it's not until B tier that we see Himiko in there. Now, if you think Himiko's there, I think she's pretty decent in a lot of situations if enemies are fire weak, but we don't have the fire ones that she can support, because obviously Asta has better support for fire units. So that's where I'm wondering if Asta with Himiko and Topaz and Numby, maybe that becomes a thing, because then we get two stronger type units that she can pair with and the way she goes. But if sort of Jing was fire, I'd see a lot more of that. But maybe Himiko just doesn't have the wood to get that done, but we'll have to wait and see. Moving on from that, this one might be an interesting one to some people, where we've got Bailu down in A tier, but E6 links up here. I definitely think that is the case in the later game. The AoE cleanse is so useful on so many fights. Yes, some fights it's not as useful, but also the aggro capabilities for so many characters. I think Lynx is more team specific and enemy specific. Like if you need that cleanse, yeah, piss off Bailu. If you need that aggro for a Blade or a Clara, 100% you bring her every day of the week. Even at E0, I'd be taking her over Bailu if I'm using one of these two. It's just too safe. And in early game, you can share her aggro. If you're using, like early game, a lot of people use March. I'm still using it on my new account. You pair those two up and you get just double the aggro. So I just think, yeah, Lynx was an absolutely crazy introduction to the roster. She can solo sustain, definitely nowhere near the solo sustain of this. And I feel like she's a better solo sustain at really poor gear. In that mid gear stage, I feel like Japard's a little bit better because he can mitigate so much damage. But then once you get them fully geared, like into like plus 15s and stuff like that, then she becomes better again. And also depends, once again, if you're using her with like a Clara or a Blade and you're pushing all that aggro onto Clara or Blade, it just makes her solo sustain so much easier. And I think that is a great place for her. So that pretty much covers the top tiers. I don't think you can separate Fu Xuan and Locha. I just think those two both shine in different areas. And I just think they'll be different teams moving forward. If you've got a few extra skill points that you can spare and you want that extra buff from Fu Xuan, or you're trying to avoid the one shots on your teammates, then Fu Xuan shines. If you're not at threat of one shot I just think then Luocha just becomes better because the skill points, the continuous healing, I like that. The one thing is that he doesn't have any buffs unless you have Eidolons, whereas the Fu Xuan, we do get the crit rate and the max HP. So once again, I have both of these guys. I love both of them. They're both fantastic, and yeah, it just depends on the situation which one you're going to bring. When we look at this S tier and damage, I know we touched on it a little bit, but I feel like this is pretty well rounded. I definitely am a QQ fan. Obviously, I am very biased to that one, but I definitely like it. And for the newer players out there with the Jingliu banner having QQ and Ting Yun, I just think it is incredible value for a new player coming with the PS launch and stuff like that to be able to go that. The next one, Welt. Welt's sort of, I feel like Welt has yo-yoed his whole life in the tier list. I feel like he's up and down. People love him, then they hate him. And I just think he's an all-round good unit. I honestly haven't pulled him on any of my accounts. And I really want Welt. I actually really like Welt. I think he's got a really wicked technique. I think he's just an all-round cool character. Damage amplification as well, stalling the enemy teams. But once again, like I said, I feel like he's yo-yoed in the tier list because there's been a yo-yo on what people have been looking for in the game. Like I said, I feel like this tier list is now based around endgame. People, having those dupes on 4 stars, people clearing MOC and now looking to clear it faster. In which case, Welt doesn't help as much because he's slowing the enemies, which makes them take less turns, which maybe you want them to take turns to proc different things and get more energy. And he's a safe unit, but he doesn't speed everything up, is I think the reason that he is down there in the A tier as opposed to up there in the S tier. But either way, I still think he's a great unit. And then obviously we've jammed all these three who, used to be like the free-to-play start of the game. This was all you had, but obviously they have been bumped down. The rest of it, I don't think we really need to go into too much. The debuffers have a little bit more use over the other 4 stars down here, just due to their synergies with Kafka and stuff like that. Once again, we are looking at the blast, which is 3 target. If we go up here to single target, you'll see things like Sushang come up and stuff like that. But obviously, I think blast is where I want to default to for looking at a tier list. I think it just covers the widest variety of the game in the stuff that we look at, especially MOC, clearing ads, Swarm, you got to clear ads, just general simulated universe, you got to clear ads and have a single target. So I think it's pretty much safe with that. The rest of it, like I said, these units used to be widely separated and up in the A tiers and stuff, but with so many exclusive 5-star units now, it's just become too much to handle for a tier list to try and squeeze all these units in, and that is where it's at. Now, the one thing I will mention is Yukong. I don't have an E6 Yukong, so I struggle with her. I just don't like the finickiness of Yukong personally, so I'm not a big fan of her. I'm not sure if that's the reason why she's down here. I think Asta's just splashably better in general, but if Yukong's perfectly tuned at E6, I think she can be up there with Asta as well, but she has to be really well built, really well tuned to the team and what you're trying to accomplish. But that pretty much rounds out the tier list. Once again, leave a comment and you'll go into the draw for the $100 giveaway. Let me know your guys' thoughts as well. Would you put any changes to here? I honestly wouldn't. Once again, we are looking at the blast one. I think it's pretty well rounded, this tier list, and I don't pick anything where I'm like, whoa, that's way wrong. Like, maybe you could argue something like, well, maybe you want him up to S, but I think if all you're arguing is a 1-tier change on a couple characters, I think it's a pretty well-rounded tier list. But anyway, guys, as always, you let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.